10 o'clock. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Homegrown Lecture Series Talk, the second to last of the month. Just as a reminder, keep your computers on mute and your video off. It does help save with bandwidth. As a reminder, there will be a survey after the presentation, and we greatly appreciate that being filled out. It only takes a couple minutes, but it helps us continue what we're doing, especially in this time of trying to figure out if we're going to have in-person or online. I do believe the recording is started, so just be prepared that this will be recorded, then you will be emailed the link afterwards. Well, I did not update the flyer. I provided Amanda the
wrong one.
So next Thursday is the last one for October, and that will be me giving that, Brandy Keller, on tips for wildlife. Then we will have an entirely new schedule for November. All right, if you want to go ahead to the first slide, and then I want to introduce Amanda Krippel. She is a coworker in FCH, Family Community Health. We think that this is a really great combination for this homegrown series. And, talking about obviously a lot of what we grow can be eaten, so just taking food safety into account. For you guys to be aware, this is another service that our extension offers. Amanda does a couple other programs. One is a 6-week master memory class that is geared towards seniors with community centers. That could be in person and of course online right now. So we are able to serve the community that way. And then the other one that she helps with is the diabetes. That's a 6-week course, and she does that in Spanish. So thank you, Amanda, for being here. It's all yours.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, everyone. I wish I could see everyone's faces, but I'm just looking at my camera and smiling at you. Thank you for having me on your Homegrown series today. So today we're going to be talking about understanding the dates on food labels. We're going to learn about different types of food products and what they actually mean. We see best by, use by, expire, and we kind of really sometimes we are like left to like, oh, use by this date, but they all actually mean different things. So we really want to make sure that we have an understanding of these dates, which will allow us to buy foods at their peak quality and also help reduce food waste as well. We'll also learn when it's safe to keep foods past the food date on the food label, and actually, spoiler alert, it's more often than we actually think. So we definitely hope that learning more about the different dates on food labels will help keep us from throwing food away and also reduce that food waste as well. Let me just move this little thing over here. All right, here we go. All right, so actually by law, only infant formula is required to be dated, which is probably a mind-blown moment right now because we have food dates and food labels on everything, but actually the only food that's required to have a food date is infant formula. And the dates that we see on infant formula kind of include words expires on or used by. The dates on other foods are optional, but are also common. So if you purchase a food and it doesn't have a date on the package, the best thing to do is as soon as you get it home, grab a Sharpie and write down 10/22/20 when you bought that product so you know how long it has that shelf life in your refrigerator or your pantry. So, oops, sorry, whoa, what went ahead? Sorry. Okay, here we go. So there are two ways that dates on food packages are labeled. The first one is called an open date method, which uses a calendar date. If using an open date method, the month and the day of the month must be included. For frozen food or shelf-stable foods such as your canned products or boxes or cereals or even cake mixes, the year is also included. Some of the dates stamped include the word sell by or use by. We'll learn what these two different methods mean, but except again for infant formula and bagged produce, which we'll talk about later in this presentation, are related to quality, not safety. So it's really important to remember that these dates are for quality, not for safety. So stores and our grocery stores use these dates to keep to determine how long to actually keep them on the shelf. Okay. All right, so a less common method is also called a closed date. And this method uses a code instead of an actual date. Closed dates are often seen on cans, on boxes of food, and often relate to the pack date. So the pack date is the date that the food was actually packed, but not necessarily produced or harvested. So most food companies have their own codes. So it's really hard for us as the consumer to figure out what that actual date is because it's a closed date. All right, so a lot of us have seen a barcode. I had my box here. A barcode, which is also called the Universal Product Code or a UPC. Now, this is not the same as a closed date on a food package. The Universal Product Code is actually used for inventory and other information for the manufacturer. When I was younger, my mom would actually use the UPC code and she would say that the last two numbers was the year it expired. So, for example, that code, the last two numbers are 90. She's like, oh no, this expires 1990. And I was like, oh, sure, okay, I believe you. Little did I know that that has no relevance on expiration dates or use by. It's just a code for the manufacturer. So, you know, when I actually started to learn about these things, it was really interesting that this code has nothing to do with the last two digits mean that it expired in 1990. So it was a funny joke for my mom and I. So, all right, so let's know your dates. So when we're shopping at the grocery store, it's a really good idea to pay attention to the dates that are actually stamped on the food. Using this information can really help us spot the highest and the freshest quality of that food. For some foods, the dates can help ensure that the foods you're buying are actually the safest possible. Okay, so let's do this first one, sell by date. So the sell by date is sometimes called a pull date, and that's because it's determined by the manufacturer and it's designed to tell the grocery store how long that food should be on the shelf for its best quality. It does not mean that the product is unsafe after the date has passed. So it's something to think about. It doesn't mean that it's unsafe once the date has passed. So foods with the sell by date include your dairy products, your produce that has been either washed, bagged, or cut. So sometimes at the grocery store, in the produce, you'll see cut fruit, cut melon, mushrooms, things like that. So foods that are actually nearing the sell by date may be actually discounted to help move that product off the store shelves. I actually have an example. So yesterday when we were having lunch at work, my coworker was eating a salad from Walmart and it had this big yellow sign, and that means that it was reduced on clearance because it said best if used by 10/21, which was yesterday, and she was eating this yesterday. So it had been reduced by $2.62. So there was a little bit of a bargain here because it was already nearing its shelf life and they wanted to move this product really, really fast. So I wanted to bring just an example so you guys can see the big yellow sticker, meaning that they wanted to get the product off the shelf because it was nearing its shelf life. Okay. So foods with a sell by date are actually safe to eat after the date has passed, as long, you have to remember this, if they have been handled and stored properly. This means that the food was stored properly during transport and storage and prior to purchasing. Make sure that the package doesn't have any, there's no signs that it's been mishandled, it's not torn, it's not broken, it's not leaking, things like that. One exception, of course, is bagged produce, which we'll talk about in a second. All right, so a best of use by date is another date that's related to quality or flavor, again, not safety. This date is often seen on your canned foods, packages of frozen foods, and also our cereal boxes, grains, crackers, and things of that nature. It's recommended that to get the best quality and flavor, food stamped with this date should be eaten before the date has passed. So that's not saying that we can't eat it once the date has passed. The quality might not be there, okay? So most foods with this date can be eaten safely once the date has passed, again, provided that it has been stored properly, it hasn't been mishandled, making sure the product is intact, there's no signs that the food has been damaged in transport or storage. All right, with, again, the exception of infant formula and bagged produce, a use by date is meant to tell us, the consumers, the last date that the food should be eaten in order to get the best quality. Again, infant formula should not be consumed after the date stamped on the container. Again, we're growing healthy babies, and once that expiration date, we don't know what it's going to do. So we definitely want, for infant formula that's expired, to definitely toss that. All right, so you may think that an expiration date, like all of us, is just that. It's an expiration date. It expires on 22. But the last date that a food should be eaten. So you may have seen these dates on eggs, baby food, yeast, things like that nature. Again, infant formula should be thrown away after the expiration date. Yeast, on the other hand, is safe to use, but again, it's not going to be as effective prior to the date, after the date, sorry. Eggs, on the other hand, are safe to eat up to 30 days after the expiration date. Again, washed, bagged, or cut produce has an expiration date, and that should be thrown away or even composted after that date. All right, so let's take a minute to talk about our produce that's either washed, bagged, or cut. So this really includes foods like our salads that we buy in a bag, our fruit that is already cut and sliced and wrapped, vegetables such as mushrooms or any other type of vegetables. I've seen carrots, I've seen celery, I've even seen salsa mix in containers that are already pre-cut and measured, and they're in containers ready to sell. So with these type of products, you want to notice a use by date, best by, even a use by purchase date. It's recommended that the product be thrown away or composted after the date is passed, again, for safety reasons. Produce that's nearing the date stamped on the package may also be discontinued, just like we saw in our pre-salad mix, for quick sale. If you buy it, you definitely want to eat it before the date stamped on the package. You may be tempted to freeze it or dry it, or some of the produce that's nearing its date of the package, but keep in mind the quality may not be as good as it was prior to the date. I hope that makes sense. So again, after the date, we definitely want to toss that or compost it. If it starts to show signs of withering, especially in our packaged produce, like our salads, you'll see your lettuce starts to wither, starting to turn green or brown. You definitely want to not eat that for safety reasons. All right, so eggs, really, really important. So while many people think that the date stamped on the actual egg carton is related to food safety, it really isn't. It's actually related to the quality and the grade of the egg in that carton. If there is an actual USDA shield on the carton of eggs, that means that those eggs were inspected by a USDA inspector and graded and passed. If there is no shield on the carton of eggs, that means, especially here in Texas, that it's actually been inspected by the Texas Department of Agriculture. They've been graded, they've been inspected, but it was done by a Texas Department of Ag inspector, not USDA. So regardless of the agency, USDA or Department of Ag, the eggs are good. And the quality of egg is what's being evaluated, not the safety. So we have to really take that into concern. Prior to this, I would look at my egg carton. I'm like, oh, okay, it has this stamp of approval, and I think it was great. So I think that the eggs are great. Again, it's just for quality, not safety. So that's a real thing to consider when you're buying your eggs. Okay, so the date stamped on the carton guarantees the grade of that egg up to the date. For example, if the carton of eggs shown here were graded as an A, then those eggs will be grade A up until the date on the carton, which is January 23rd. Assuming that the eggs have been handled and stored properly, the eggs, again, can be safely eaten up to 30 days after the date. So February 23rd, you can still eat those eggs up until that date. So they would be good to eat. The quality, again, of the egg may decline, but they're safe to eat. All right, so now that we understand how food is dated, let's actually take a little grocery tour, if you can, at your favorite grocery and see how we can select foods that are safe. All right, so we go into our grocery store, and sometimes the first part we walk into is that big, huge produce section that we all love. So in the produce section, you want to choose fresh fruits and vegetables that are of the highest quality. Again, if anything is bruised or brown, you want to leave that there because, again, those are going to spoil quickly. Fresh cut produce, such as your bag salads, your vegetables, sprouts, melons, fruit, should be refrigerated at all times. So if you do go to the grocery store and you know your grocery buying is going to take a little bit of time. I know for me, that's my quiet time away from my kids. I take about an hour to an hour and a half because I go through every single aisle and I just look at everything. But I do take an insulated bag with me. So you can get them anywhere, usually at that grocery store. You can buy them somewhere else. Mine are insulated, and I actually put an ice pack just to keep everything else cold. So I'll put I usually put my ice cream in there, but you can put your produce, your meats, and things like that. But it's a really good, wise decision to invest in an insulated bag and take that with you when you do go grocery shopping. Okay, so next we left the produce, and usually what's next is the deli section, or I mean the bakery section. So in the bakery section and bread, we definitely want to check the dates on the package. Making sure for the freshest quality. We want to make sure that there's no mold or growing around the bread. Sometimes you'll see little tiny specks of green starting to grow. When this happens, I usually call someone. No, I'm like, hey, this is, and sometimes they'll bring a new one or things like that. But you want to make sure that they're free from mold, especially your fresh baked items, tortillas and breads are the two biggest ones. You also want to make sure that these items are not torn or mishandled or squashed. You know, sometimes I've seen people do it. They kind of squash the bread. I have no idea why. You definitely don't want to take that. So you definitely want to look for those mishandled items in the bakery section. All right, so now we're off to our deli section. So again, you definitely want to check the dates on the packages. You don't want to buy any food in this section if the date has already passed, because it's not healthy. You also want to make sure that you have the time to eat it before the expiration date. So again, you want to make sure that all the items you're getting from the deli section remain cold. Use that insulated bag to keep everything cold. Your hot dogs, your deli meat, lunch meat, things you want to make sure they're also intact. Hot food items like rotisserie chickens that you can see out in the deli section, or sometimes deli sections have the ready-made foods. You want to make sure that those are kept hot at all times. Something to think about too in the deli section, you want to avoid cheeses that are made with unpasteurized milk. So this includes your feta cheese, which I love, brie, which I also love, blue vein cheeses, your Mexican style cheeses like queso blanco, queso fresco. You want to make sure that they're not made with unpasteurized milk. Unless they have it written, unless it's on the label, clearly labeled that it's made from pasteurized milk. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to our meat department. So on our meat department, again, you definitely want to check the dates on packages. You want to be sure that they don't have any holes or tears. Make sure that the package is cold as well. Meat that is labeled for quick sale is usually safe to eat. Just make sure that the packages, again, is intact, and make sure that you either eat the meat right away or freeze it right away. So while shopping for raw meat and poultry and fish, you definitely want to keep those products away from your other products. Now at the grocery stores, I've seen they have the plastic bags that you normally would use for your produce. They have them around the meat section where you can pull one, put your meat in there, and put it at the bottom of your cart. And the reason for this is if you put it at the top or near the front of the cart, sometimes those juices or that blood might leak and might get to your other produce. So we definitely want to keep it away, put it in a plastic bag so it doesn't cross-contaminate with any other food in your shopping basket. Okay, so now we go into our dairy, our eggs, and our juice. Again, always check your dates on the packages. Make sure that you consume what you buy before the date on the package. With eggs, you definitely, I know everybody does this, they open that lid, they look at it, make sure nothing's cracked, and you can take that carton with you. If you open a carton and you see that eggs are cracked or there's dirt, put the carton back, make sure that the eggs you take are clean. Again, with juices and milk that's been pasteurized, when fruits and vegetables are fresh squeezed or raw, bacteria from that produce can end up in your juice or other cider unless the produce of the juice has been pasteurized or otherwise treated to destroy that harmful bacteria that could be contaminated in your juice. All right. Okay, so now we've already gone around our grocery store. That's normally where you typically should shop. So now we're in our canned goods, which is our middle of the grocery store, which we'll find all the great stuff that we also like our cookies and cake mixes and all that fun stuff. So in our canned food section, you want to select cans that look pretty much perfect. You want to select a can that is not dented, it's not rusted, it's not dusty at the top, it's not bulging for anything. If you see lids that are dusty at the top, it kind of might tell you that it's been on the shelf for a really long time. So you definitely want to look at the date. Usually the dates are at the bottom and sometimes they're at the top. So like this one is our beans, and this best if used by, it says 5/6/21. So these are good beans to eat, good canned, they don't look, nothing's wrong with them. So when we're at our canned food section, we want to definitely take a look at those items when we're shopping for canned good items. Okay, so guess what? There's an app for that. Just like there is an app for everything we use in our everyday lives. So these two apps are highly recommended because they can determine how food is, if it's safe to use or safe to eat, how long you can store in your refrigerator or your pantry. The first app, which is called Is My Food Safe, is sponsored by the Academy of Nutrition of Dietetics. And the other app, My Food Keeper, is also sponsored by the USDA. So these are really good apps. I looked into these. You can actually just pull up your screen, Google, and type in Is My Food Safe app, and you can actually see it versus actually download it on your phone first. See if that's something you like, and then also look into the Food Keeper. They're both really great apps. I looked into them and they're very user friendly. You can type in pretty much any food you have in your pantry or your refrigerator, and it'll tell you if it's good to eat, how long you've had it, things of that nature. So these are really good informational and safety apps that can be downloaded onto your smartphone, or even look up into, you can even look it up on your computer as well. Okay. All right, so this is your time where you can come off mute, and we're going to play a little bit of a game. So we're going to put into action what we actually learned today, and we can talk about what type of labels that we've seen and what we found on food labels, excuse me. All right, so here is the first one. Okay. Pioneer cornmeal, we've all used it for fish and for breading and all that great stuff. So the date is better if used by, and the date is September 7th. Is it safe to use after April 3rd? Does anyone want to come off mute and just say yes or no? Or you can type it in the chat box. So better if used by, and the date is September 7th. Is it okay to use after April 3rd? Does anyone want to take a guess?
I guess it's safe.
It's safe? Okay, so it actually is safe to eat, unless your pantry or your home is very humid and very warm, which will then probably might be infested with a little bit of pantry pests. So you can use it. We definitely recommend that if you do use it, put it in your refrigerator, and you can actually use it within a year for best quality. So, so that's a yes. Okay, so check in. This is a good one. So the sell-by date is July 20th. You buy it on July 15th and you put it in the refrigerator, and like everything else, we forget about it. We get busy, it starts to get pushed to the back of your fridge, and then you're like, oh my God, the check-in, and it's now July 22nd. Is it safe to eat 5 days later? Any takers?
We have a no.
Okay. All right. So fresh poultry should be kept in the refrigerator, excuse me, no more than 1 or 2 days. After that, it needs to be discarded. Keep in mind that if you purchase it, you can actually freeze it. And for best quality, it can be in the freezer for up to 9 months. Okay. So whoever answered that was correct. All right. Next one. Canned food has a best by date of September 24th. Is it safe to eat on December 1st? Any takers?
We have a yes.
You are correct. Yes, it's safe to eat provided that the can is still intact. It's not bulging, it's not rusted, there's no dents on it, things like that. The quality may be reduced, especially if it's been stored in a hot kitchen, but it's actually safe to eat. So you are correct. All right, so we have come to the conclusion of our presentation. Again, we want you to remember, with the exception of infant formula, the dates stamped on food packages are determined mainly by the manufacturer and are best used to determine quality, not safety. As we learned today, many foods can be safely consumed after the date stamped on the package. The two exceptions are infant formula and washed and bagged produce. Use the dates on the food packages to get the freshest food, but don't let that food go to waste. And if you buy more than what you need, use your smartphone apps, Food Keeper or My Food is Safe, to help you determine what is the best and is it okay to throw out and when that food might be unsafe. This will definitely help us prevent good food from going to waste. All righty, well, thank you everybody for attending our Understanding Food Labels, and I hope that you got some great information to take home with you, or if you are at home, and a better understanding of those dates, use by, best by, expiration, and if there's any additional information that you need, feel free to reach out to us. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, we can definitely stay on to answer any of that. So thank you.
Hi, Amanda.
Hey.
Okay. This question was answered, but we can't see the chat in the video section, so I just want to read it.
Okay.
George had asked that he had been seeing some packaged lettuce mix at Costco, and it now shows a package date. Are you able to comment on the use if if it has a packed on date? And Dr. Davis here in the extension office stated, package date refers to the date that the product was packaged and is generally not intended for consumers, but rather it is used by manufacturers and retailers to track inventory, rotate items, discount them, and locate in case of recall. So that was a great answer.
Yep, she got it.
And one that it's not a question, it's a statement. I will say that probably for more years that I've been alive than not, if I've seen mold on bread, I would just get rid of that part of the bread. But years ago, I discovered that that's absolutely not right. The USDA actually recommends discarding the entire loaf because it does make sense. You know, if you see mold, then obviously there's going to be mold that you can't see, and if it's an enclosed plastic package,
Right.
you know, you just don't know where it is. So
those spores of that mold can be all over, and they just haven't really formed yet in that tight sealed package of bread.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even, you know, taking it to give to ducks or something, I mean, you're just putting them at risk also, because that could happen on top of the fact that white bread shouldn't be given to waterfowl. And then Dr. Davis also said some people do that with cheese. I still do that with cheese.
Yeah, I do that with actually our tortillas. We'll buy a package of tortillas and it's too many for us to eat in our family. And before they start to have any mold on them, we take them out to our little lake that's near our house and we just tear them up and give them to the ducks. I don't know if that's safe or not, but they're not moldy. It's just we have too much and we know we're not going to eat it. So that's one of the things that we do.
Yeah. So, but Sandra said some people do the same with cheese, though, where they cut it off. Is that not good? Because I still do that.
I don't know.
It would be the same, I guess, as bread. It's in a
It would probably be the
plastic.
same as bread. Yeah.
That's sad. Okay. Any other questions?
Hey, Amanda, it's Shannon. I have a question.
Okay, Shannon, I hope it's not hard. I hope I can answer.
No, it's not hard. And by the way, you did a great job.
Thank you.
And you might have touched on this, but I might have missed it. But a lot of grocery stores now have the seafood section.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just kind of wondering your thoughts on that. I know from an agriculture perspective, you know, a lot of that food is exposed to, uh, you know, oxygen on a daily basis. It's not individually packed; it's just laid out there.
Right.
So I would think the breakdown of that is probably a lot quicker. And then from also from an agriculture perspective, and feel free to chime in, Dr. Davis, and you as well. Um, a good method for checking freshness for seafood for me, whether it be fish or shrimp or anything, is always the smell test.
Yeah. I was going to say, usually at the meat section, all of that seafood is stored on ice.
Yep.
So that's a great indicator that that food is going to be fresh. But we don't know how long it's been sitting on that ice. So usually you want to have that conversation with that person across that counter, and they would probably the best person to tell you, you know what, it's been sitting here. You know, they wouldn't be selling seafood if it's been in there for a long time. Obviously they're risking that safety hazard for their consumers, but at the same time, if it's properly stored on ice, we know that it's being kept cold at all times. But you want to have that conversation with that person across the counter, making sure that, you know, they might know when they put it out there and how long it's been, if it's been there for a day or two. And then if last but not least is the smell test, of course, as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, I've been on the end result of not getting
Fresh.
or yeah, fresh before because and you know, this is something I always tell you know, consumers when they're buying meat and everything. And I think the same thing applies to the deli counter is get to know the people on the other side of the counter
Mhm.
because if you know them, you're going to be able to build that trust relationship with them.
That's right.
Because a lot of them, you'll see that there's probably a lot of high turnover.
Mhm.
And you kind of want to believe everything that they say, but you know, you really wonder how long some of that shrimp has been sitting out there. You know, and especially too if you find that if it does pass the smell test and you bring it home and there's any type of sliminess
Mhm.
on there, that is
Yeah.
another indicator that you know that
It's
that's probably not a good thing as
fresh.
well. So
Yeah. And the same thing too, I think if you buy seafood like shrimp, for example, you know, we always tell you, you want to eat that right away. You don't want to put it in the fridge and wait 2 more days because you don't know how long it's been sitting in that
yeah,
ice for X amount of days. And then you're going to put it in your fridge where it's probably not as cold as the ice.
yeah,
So you definitely want to eat it right away or freeze it right away.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Having that
And
relationship um, with that person across the counters is a great
so
idea. Yeah.
anyway, that was just my comment. So but otherwise, great job.
Thank you. Anybody else?
All right, I do not see any other questions. I will just state this since we have tend to have a lot of gardeners in these programs that obviously sell by dates and the dates that are on the packages are ways to mitigate safety where, you know, because we don't know how long, you know, how long ago they were harvested and so when you eat fresh stuff out of your garden, you don't have to worry about that as much. But
Yeah.
ultimately, based on the signs that you see that you have things that do have a package date, you can tell if even your home produce that you've grown has gone bad. If you can compare, um, you know, there's no real rules, I don't think, about, you know, when you know, the food safety. Well, I'm sure there are, but we didn't discuss them about food safety from the vegetables from your own garden. But a lot of those same signs can can relate. But of course, you have a longer period because, you know, you picked them fresh right from the garden.
Exactly. And they haven't been sprayed with any type of pesticide or anything like that. Versus wherever they were harvested, we really don't know where they're coming from. They'll say sometimes, you know, in a pack of strawberries, whatever farm, either Mexico or somewhere, but you don't know what they've actually done. So it's always good, you know, to be safe and to wash that produce and rinse it and store it properly.
Well, we thank you very much for being here, Amanda. This was a really great departure from our typical talks, and we hope to have you back. And everyone, thank you for joining us. I put Amanda's email in there if you are interested in a diabetes or food safety talk with a group that you are part of.
Yeah.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week for tips on wildlife.
Ooh,
Thank you.
thank you, everybody. Bye.